This is Betsy Gerhart Pasley, 1977, interviewing Sue Bachman Henderson and Lynn Walker Luna, alias Rookie. Also, 1977 graduates. It's Thursday, December 7, 2017. Okay, so Doug Brackenridge and Shirley Rushing, no last names, may also help out here. So we'll do a joint interview with you guys. So Sue and Rookie, sorry, I can't help it.
That's exactly what
Yeah.
you should call me.
Absolutely.
Can y'all think back about why you came to Trinity, and was athletics part of that decision?
For me personally, it was senior year in high school, and my family had come when I was in the 8th grade. I guess it was 68. I can't remember. It was the hemisphere, the year of the
68.
hemisphere. So we came, and our minister from our Presbyterian church had worked at Trinity or taught something to do with either the university or the Presbyterian church, University Press, right next door. And so we drove by, and all I remember was the tall red walls. That's all I remember. But when it came time to choose a college, I went, I want to go to that college, the one with a brick in San Antonio. And I had no idea they had any athletics.
And you were living in El Paso?
El Paso.
Did you play sports in high school?
Yes, all through high school.
Okay.
All the sports.
And Sue, how about you?
Well, I was living in Connecticut. My father had been transferred to Houston. I made a deal with him that I could finish high school in Connecticut and I would go to school in Texas, which I'm sorry to say 40 years ago I thought Texas, Texas. Knowing that in a year he would change his mind, and he didn't. So he really limited the schools that I could look at, Trinity being one of them, SMU being the other. I went to SMU in a day in December, and it was a day like today. And the very next day I came to San Antonio to look at Trinity, and it was about 85 and the sun was out. I had no idea if they had athletics. But I was a little frustrated that they were making me go to this state I'd never been in, and they all wanted me to go to SMU. So I came to Trinity, and I loved it. I loved it.
Teenagers do.
It was the right decision.
Now, Sue, did you play sports in high school?
I did. I played basketball and softball.
And Ricky, what did you play in high school?
Volleyball, basketball, track.
Okay, cool. So recruiting wasn't in there, so we're going to skip that. This may take a while, but I was going to ask, which sports did you play at Trinity, and what positions did you play? So I'm going to start with Sue because they're both going to be long. But Sue, why don't you start?
Okay, I played basketball. I was a point guard. The year that I came to Trinity in '73 was the first year that Texas had 5 women's basketball, 5-man
Right.
basketball,
Full court.
full court. So everybody had come out of 6-man, 3-and-3, and in Connecticut we had played 5-man the whole time I was in high school. I'd never heard of 6-man basketball, and I had a friend, Ellen Rohde, who was a junior or senior at the time, that said to me, "Well, you should play here." It's like, play what? Basketball. Okay. So I did. I played point guard for them. And then in softball, I was second base.
And let's see, I played 4 years of volleyball and basketball in high school and track. So volleyball, we ran a 6-2 offense where nothing like they play today. We stayed on the court for the whole game.
Oh, wow.
And so when I was on the front row, I was a spiker, blocker, and when I was on the back row, I was the setter. And then basketball, I was part of the 6-man, run as fast as you can and stop at the mid-court. So I was a point guard, and I knew how to guard. Shooting, that was just like, don't give me the ball, I'm not going to shoot. And then track, I did the long jump, triple jump, and we ran the 440 relay, and we didn't do another relay. We didn't do an 880, did we?
I don't think so.
Just the 440 relay.
You wouldn't run further than that, I think. Is that
Can I inject a story here?
Please.
I was a Gamma when I was at Trinity. She was an independent. And it always came down to the very last event to see whether the Gammas would win
right.
or the independents would win. And it was a 220-yard dash, right? 440, 220?
Probably 220.
I think it was 220.
I can't
And it was
remember.
always me and her. And she was a runner, and I was not. And I would think, I should concede this right now. But I would get out there and run and be looking at the back of her going, oh, this is not good.
But this was intramural?
Intramurals. That was intramurals.
You were allowed to do that
I was a
then?
Yes.
GDI,
Yes.
a gosh darn independent. That's what we were
Or something
called.
like that.
Oh,
something
okay. Okay.
Yes, and we could
Can
participate.
I just ask one more question about your high school? What was the attitude of people that you were an athlete? You were into athletics back in high school. What was the culture like? What did your peers think of you, or what kind of messages were you getting back then?
It was very, the athletes were the elite. It was, everybody looked up to it. We were in the paper. Everything we did was followed in the paper. I didn't know it at the time, but through the years people would say, oh yeah, I remember reading about you won the long jump and this meet. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
I didn't even look at papers, so I didn't even know it was there, but it was
And you
highly respected.
And from your peers as well as other people. Okay. What
I'm
about
going
you?
to say that's the same here, that athletics was very well received. I came from a very small town, so winning a basketball game in high school was front news coverage. So it was very well received, both by peers and by the community.
And my senior year was the first year they started giving letter jackets to females, so we got a
Wow.
letter jacket.
Good
That
timing.
was
I did not.
Cool.
Okay, because later on that was a problem here in San Antonio about publicity. That's why I was asking that. We can deal with that later. But okay.
Okay. This question says, who were your coaches? Plural. But we know most here at Trinity, and with the exception of track, it was Libby Johnson, right? So, what memories do you have of Libby Johnson? And Sue, do you want to start, or?
The thing that I share all the time is that, honestly, I probably would have flunked out of Trinity without Libby Johnson. I was having a really good time. I was a good kid. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't doing drugs, but I was staying up till all hours of the night. And this lovely lady to my left had me taking all 8 o'clock classes. And Libby came to me about a week before finals and said, "You're coming home with me,
Really?
and you are going to live with me until finals are over, and you are going to study,
wow.
and you are going to pass." And I did.
Freshman year?
First semester freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd only started basketball in November, so she didn't know me well. But yeah, I mean, she really was instrumental.
She focused you.
She focused me.
How do you think she knew that you were not doing well? Was this obvious, or
Shirley told her.
You probably
probably
told her.
Shirley? Or you were the advisor?
I was the
Oh
academic
well, then I
advisor,
understand.
and,
yeah.
Okay.
We got D slips and F slips.
Way
Right,
to
right
go,
back
Shirley.
then.
Way to be a
Okay.
tattletale.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, I mean, that was really impressive to me, and I've remembered that for years because
Okay.
what a huge difference.
Right. That's wonderful.
Getting goosebumps.
My memory of Libby was she kind of became our mother. All of the girls on the team, she was like the overseer, and she just herded us, and we were her little brood. And I remember trying out for volleyball, and because I saw a sign in the cafeteria, in the refectory or the cafeteria, I didn't even know they had sports at the time, and so I'm thinking, okay, I'll go check it out. I went in my jeans, a Trinity shirt, I had sandals on, and they're a full out, working out tryouts. So I'm barefoot out there, and they're hitting balls. But I was so green, I didn't know how to prepare.
You stayed green for a long time.
That's why they call me rookie, I guess.
Okay.
What was Libby's response to that?
Well, actually, that's how I got my name. It was from her. The first tournament we had, which was the Lamar University tournament with volleyball, out of town. I didn't know that because we had a school named Loretta Academy. And so in my mind, I was just thinking, oh, it's just some in-town school. So I arrive at the gym to get on a bus, and I don't have any suit because I don't have anything with me. And she goes, "You really are a rookie, aren't you?"
Oh,
And I did that, and it stuck.
44 years
44
later.
44 years later. Wow.
That was going to be my next question
Me
because
too.
I knew that there was an
It
instance
was that.
where
Right.
Libby had that name, but I didn't know what it was. Before we leave who was your track coach?
Do you remember?
Yes,
Okay.
Davis. You remember Davis? He was a
Rick
football.
Davis.
Yes,
Rick
he was a
Davis.
football assistant football coach. I believe he was the first one,
Mm-hmm.
and but he was very busy with other things
Mhm.
at the time, so we were kind of an afterthought. That was kind of a really rough
That I remember.
time.
Delbert Rowland, I think, for a while. I was reading a
Delbert
story about it, and we had 3 coaches, because I cannot remember this. I'm not sure why, but I have a lousy memory. But we had 3 coaches apparently in 1 year. I think we had Davis, then we had Delbert Rowland, who had a heart attack, and then they brought some other guy in who was like working at the Y, or I'm not sure. And that's the one. I was telling them the story about how we did an event or a meet in the valley, I think, and I think we drove
Yes.
down in it in a big old honking
And it
LTD.
was cold, and there was 2 schools, us and them.
I think.
And we had to run all these. I had to do a long jump with nobody competing against me. I just had to go jump, and then because that was going to get us to state at UT.
Hmm.
That was really weird.
And I think he had me drive back, which was really weird because I wasn't driving. But anyway,
It was very different.
we made it
A
back.
very different time.
So you don't remember a whole lot more about the track coach than sounds like I do.
I remember going to the state meet,
Hmm.
and he drove us to Southwest Texas,
Mhm.
which is Southwest Texas at the time, University, and he was dating maybe the coach there. So he dropped us off with her and said, "Here, take my girls, and I'll meet you there." Well, he didn't show up on time. You don't have to print this. I'm just giving you
Right, no, no.
stories. He didn't show up on time, and so we didn't know where we were supposed to report in
I
for
do
this or
remember
that. You remember that?
Hmm.
And then, and she was mad. I knew she was mad, and I was feeling guilty. But she got us. She took care of us. She said, "You go here, you go there. This is the time you have to report." And
Who is she?
the coach at Southwest Texas
Okay.
on that
And what year would that be? You don't remember?
Is that the
My
first
junior,
year?
I was thinking junior year, so 75, 76 maybe, or spring of 76, because for some reason I didn't see my name in the 77 spring. I don't know if I was doing other things, but I wasn't even on the team.
I'm pretty
was
sure it was
weird.
that year.
I think it was
just remember
junior
it was him, and it was.
And you made state, and I made state in the mile because
Mhm.
we didn't have very good competition down the valley.
Yeah.
But I do, in Southwest Texas, as I was telling them in my last interview, kind of adopted us.
They did.
And I
because
never
we
knew.
got dropped off.
I never knew about that connection, but
She drove us. We were in their band, the Southwest Texas band.
Yeah.
It was very odd.
yeah.
Yeah.
But we did have
like-
the same colors. They were also wearing maroon.
Yes.
Were they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't remember that.
And you don't remember the name of the coach at Southwest
Do you?
Texas?
Mm-mm.
Single lady.
Do you remember, Rookie, about uniforms, track uniforms? Was there an issue with them, or we didn't have them, or we had to have our own, or
I think we got them. I don't know how much we liked them.
were they men's pants? I think they're
No,
men's
they were
shorts.
they were like the volleyball players wear now. They're those real short ones, and we had never worn anything like that.
Oh, okay.
You don't remember that?
No, I'm remembering some like men's track shorts. They were kind of blousy and a weird fabric. Okay,
Weird. I don't remember
yeah,
that.
but it was
We'll have to
it,
find a picture.
it was kind of catch as catch can. It was in terms of the track uniforms. The other sports, I think we were in better shape.
Right. Volleyball,
Okay.
basketball. Always.
Yeah. Okay. Somebody else?
I wanted to go before we leave Libby. Could I just had a couple other questions, and would they talk about her sense of humor? Now that would be one story, but do you remember any other things that you would say? I mean, what was her? I'm trying to get at her style. Was she?
She was-
One of them referred to her as a comedian and cracking jokes, and that's
She could be very sarcastic. You
Yeah,
got
I
a
was
little
gonna-
too big for your britches or too high. She could just. And one time I remember being in her office, and she had said something, and I came back at her like with a joke like that, and she came right back, and she just she could always win. Let's just put it that way. We thought we were sharp. She was always sharper.
I can remember too, we played at Baylor one year, and I broke my finger and she sprained her ankle.
Basketball.
Basketball. And Libby looked at us and said, "You walked in here, you're walking out. There will be no help."
Oh.
Okay.
I'm like, what if it's broken?
That was after
That was
the-
after we lost.
after you
we
lost,
lost,
right.
yes.
To Baylor. I think
At
it was
Baylor.
And did you just if we finish on this? Did you ever pick up a sense of her unhappiness with the way things were going? You know,
She
did
was
she ever?
frustrated. She would
Yeah.
be frustrated.
And so, what was frustrating her?
I guess it was. You want to name names?
Well,
Well, yeah.
Dr. McClay. She was
Well-
always frustrated. With,
I know Jeff.
So
Yeah,
there was a lot of frustration there. That's what I would pick up mostly.
but when she was by the time you were here, she was assistant athletic director. 70. It was about
No.
74, 75 is when she.
she was assistant.
Assistant.
I
She
didn't
was.
know that.
I just wonder whether, that you picked up,
She didn't talk
you know,
about
she was
that.
having budget problems and Title IX implementation and all
she
things
talked
like
about
that.
it a little here and there, but it wasn't a lot. I didn't hear a lot.
I think she was given the title Assistant Athletic
Mm.
Director in order to try to satisfy Title IX.
Right,
But she
right.
didn't have any power.
It, as far as I can recall, it didn't. It didn't.
It
involve-
added to
it
her
didn't in-
duties.
It added to her responsibilities. It did not add to her
Right.
salary.
No,
Mm.
no, no.
But it and she was doing the work, the administrative work
Right.
of all the women's teams
Right.
anyway.
Right.
Right.
And so that's what an assistant athletic director would do. And she
Right.
was already doing that as coach.
Right.
So it was a title.
Right. And you know, the athletic council or the athletic committee, they first were going to recommend the title assistant athletic director, but there was a change there where they said assistant athletic director of women's athletics
Mm.
because there was there would have been a different status had she would have been, on the same level as
Right.
Pete, but as an assistant. This way, she didn't get that. So,
Yeah.
okay, well that.
I would say that in regards to Libby, for me, her office was always a safe haven,
A sanctuary.
a sanctuary. When we weren't on the court and we weren't in class, you would often find many of us just there, hanging out. And comfortably, and being able to talk about things that you didn't really share with your own parents, but you got an older person's perspective of what you should be doing.
And I saw one article where they said she had all kinds of stuff in her office,
I'm trying to remember.
paraphernalia and so forth.
don't
No,
remember.
Did she have a collection of something?
okay,
I can't remember.
but you didn't.
So, the other thing, I was trying to remember was her coaching style. How would you describe her style?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I think she was always encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
Always encouraging. She wouldn't tear us down. She'd get mad. We might look over and she's throwing a towel on the floor or something, but we didn't know why. Couldn't have been me. I mean, she had a temper, but she never took it out on us.
No, I agree with that.
And she was a teacher, I think. I recall
Yes.
like playing softball, walking on the softball team and having never played organized softball before and just learned so much. But like you say, she was tough, kind of like a tough disciplinarian, but not tearing you down. Would
She
you
always built
agree?
you up.
I would agree with that.
Well, one thing I noticed in all the stuff that I read was she never publicly criticized a specific player.
Correct.
It was always the team.
Correct.
But if somebody did something well, then she made a
Yeah.
credit. And would you say that's fair?
I'd say that's a very
Absolutely.
fair assessment.
Well,
And-
that's just what I picked up from.
And when you're living through it, you're not really thinking the difference between her and anybody else, but that's why we're all drawn to her all the time. Always, drawn to the team, drawn to the practice, drawn to her office. Just, she had that type of personality.
Okay.
No,
That's what-
and kind
thank
of
you.
back to the,
Right.
because I
Yeah.
feel like Libby is part of this next question, but um, Title IX was, I think it was passed in 72, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we got here, we were really, I guess, beneficiaries, being able to, having teams to be able to walk onto or try out for. Did y'all feel at the time any of the benefits or the downsides of trying to implement Title IX as a program at Trinity, or was that even in your mindset?
I think I had an experience with it, but at the time I was clueless. I didn't know what Title IX was. I wasn't paying any attention. But freshman year, it was in, I think it was towards the end of volleyball, maybe the beginning of basketball season, my freshman year. And Libby said she got Patty Hartley and I think Ellen Rohde and me and some other athletes and said, go to Dean Grissom's office and tell her what you think about the sports program because they're thinking they might be cutting it for the women. And so we went, and I remember I was like, at that point, I'm incensed because if I'm not playing sports here, I'm leaving this school. And I did tell her that. I said, this is like the center of my experience here right now. And so we all spoke and shared that, and then never heard another word about it.
And again, about what year was that?
That was 73.
Your freshman year, right when
Wow.
you got
Yeah.
here.
Mm-hmm.
That
I
might be
didn't know
interesting.
anybody. I was.
It'd be interesting to ask Colleen Grissom if she recalls that conversation,
Yeah.
since she's still around.
Right. Well, yeah, she's still
I
here.
remember Patty Hartley. I think she was our spokesperson because she was maybe a senior by then.
Who?
Patty
Patty
Hartley.
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, 'cause she was Hector's age. I think so. Yeah, I think she was a senior.
That's interesting.
No, she's not.
Dallas or
Patty, I think she lives in Kansas, maybe.
Yeah.
okay.
She's not. local.
Back when you were doing this, both with track and with basketball or whatever, how many young women were coming out? I mean, how many prospects were there? I've read on certain occasions they could hardly have enough to make a team. But what was your memory?
I don't remember there ever being not enough to make a team. I don't think there were huge numbers. And also keep in mind that back then, if you came and you tried out, you were on the team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right,
So-
right.
I played on the basketball team one year. That was
did
to prove it.
I
Yeah,
mean-
to stay in shape for track.
I don't think there
I mean,
were ever more than maybe 15, 16 people that came out.
Right.
We were not a large
I
group.
don't remember anybody getting cut.
I
think
nobody
they
ever
cut
did.
themselves.
You mean for track?
No,
Or
I
for
mean
volleyball,
I mean for
basketball.
everything. I don't remember there ever being.
I think you're right.
I think it was pretty small numbers.
And it would always be the freshman class coming.
Yes, it would
Because
be the
that
freshman
once-
class
If
coming
you weren't in
is
by the freshman year, you didn't come in when you were a sophomore,
Yeah.
junior, senior.
yeah.
Right.
Well, since she coached junior varsity, she had junior varsity teams
We,
No,
in basketball and
not
vol-
when we were there.
not when we
were
were
just
there.
intercollegiate basketball. That was one team.
There was
Okay,
no,
well, at some
no
point
JV.
she was doing
Wow.
maybe
she was
later.
doing
Maybe
headed.
Well,
later
before?
on, but not.
And I can't remember that.
Okay, well, I mean, that's what it says
I read it
she's
somewhere.
doing, but
Wow.
Wonder what year?
and I think she had a student doing some of that, but anyway, that's minor. But I thought in the track that they had problems getting.
Oh, well, yeah,
numbers.
we needed to have 4 people to do a relay.
And we had 4.
And we had 4 exactly.
team.
And so you had sprinters doing long distance relays and long distance people doing sprint
it was
relays.
Betsy and me,
Yeah.
and I can't remember the other 2. They were freshmen.
Well, Julie Grimm one year and
Julie Grimm.
and Cindy
yes.
Bishop
Yes.
and there's
Was
some other
Peggy
ones.
Cooker not there then?
No, she was 2 years ahead of us, I
Yeah,
believe.
Right.
So yeah.
But I know back at her time they were having.
Yeah, so were you on the
Problem.
team, Rookie, when Peggy started it? So I, think
so,
it was
yeah.
you and me and Peggy and a 4th person maybe.
Was that sophomore year?
I believe so. So I ran, I think, sophomore and junior.
Who was the coach? Davis. I can't remember who the coach was.
So kind of along the lines of what Doug just asked, so Title IX comes in 72. We show up in 73, so our timing was impeccable. As we were there those 4 years playing these sports, did you see that it started to catch hold and maybe mature and grow, or was it 4 years of struggle, or how would you describe those 4 years?
I never sensed there was a struggle. Of course, I was a freshman, and what did I know? I don't know that I would say that it really grew in those 4 years.
Yeah.
I think it was kind of constant. we pretty much played the same schools and did the same rotations, but I don't think it grew, but I also don't think it was a struggle.
I know at the beginning, volleyball, there were seniors, juniors, there was all those classifications when I was a freshman. And we were playing intercollegiate. We were playing
UT.
UT, Austin, we were playing Baylor, we were playing Southwest Texas, who was #1. And then it did change with all the divisions we got into.
When that
By
new
my
conference
senior year,
came
yeah.
in.
Then we were playing more schools of the same population
Right,
and
right,
things
right.
like that. But I know we always had enough people, and we always had people trying out. There was new faces every year.
And she had to do the same way of recruiting, like she wasn't permitted to go out and actually do recruiting. It had to be like
Whoever got here.
Sort of.
right here, and her
Right.
announcements in the sub and her personal contact.
Mhm.
Is that the way you
Right.
you
yeah,
just
I
walked
think so.
on, right? Is that
Right. Oh yeah. I just
Right.
Because you're interested. And I know I've talked to people through the years who had played and were on good volleyball teams, and I'm like, why didn't you ever come out and try out? Oh, I didn't know much about it. And so it wasn't widely publicized.
Well, and part of the recruiting was intramural. So you'd run the intramural track meet, and you see somebody was really good. And I don't know about you, rookie, but
Yes.
I'd go and try to recruit them for our team. You know,
Mhm.
so you saw people who didn't know about the intercollegiate sports, you know, really excel in intramurals, and I'm sure that was another.
It was pretty hush hush. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
think looking back at it.
Yeah.
Well, when we interviewed Betsy, she had raised an interesting point about that the very fact that intramurals were so popular, that a lot of the women would be less inclined to go out for a team that had to
Mhm.
practice and
Right.
you know
I think
all
that's
that.
right.
Would
You
you,
had to show up every day at the track
Yeah.
if you were on the
Right.
track team, but if you didn't,
yeah,
Right.
would you think that would be fair to?
I would think that unless they played college sport, I mean high school
Yeah.
sports, they probably and were good.
Right.
If they were just maybe the bench warmers, I could understand they're getting their fill just through intramurals because intramurals were awesome.
Right. Well, they were. But Jim Potter had really begun
Oh,
to
yeah.
develop that program
Yes.
then. So, and of course, Libby was one that helped him
Oh, really?
start that. Yeah. I mean
Okay. I
that
didn't know
that yeah that she for the first year she was here, she was actually doing that. She was
Okay.
doing intramural and extramural, and she,
Sounds
it's
like her.
through her and that
Yes.
the co-ed program started.
Okay.
Mm.
That
Oh, wow.
I didn't know that either. I mean, when
Mm.
I was looking at it, that Jim credited her with
one of
helping
the-
get the co-ed bit
One of
started.
the neat things I think in hindsight, and we probably didn't appreciate it as much then, is that at the time we were playing, we had the chance to go off and play UT. And we got the chance to go to Baylor and play in Baylor Stadium. Whereas today, that would never happen. And Libby had made those contacts with the various coaches
Jody
that
Conrad.
that allowed us to go and play. And that was really cool.
yeah, to go play at Gregory Gym in Austin.
Yeah.
Yeah, where you
Right.
and so how did y'all feel about that? So you're playing a top level program, you know, at a Division I, well, I don't know what they called it back then, a Division I school. Did you feel way outmanned? I know we won one year, but anyway, how
Absolutely.
did that feel?
Absolutely. Freshman year, we went to we played University of Houston team volleyball, and one of their players, I don't even know how tall she was, but she ended up on the Olympic team, and she was spiking. She was this close to the
Yeah.
net. We were this close, and they were going on our feet. I mean, they were straight, man. And we all stood. This is a story. We all stood in shock on the court, and nobody moved. And it happened like 4 points in a row. And then Libby calls timeout and read us the riot act. You know, if you're not gonna play, we're going home right now. And so we started moving, but we were really in shock. We were.
Interesting.
And but UT, we got to where we would play them. It's like we're gonna play these guys hard.
Now, were you on the team when we won that game, a game against UT?
Volleyball or basketball?
I want to say basketball.
Basketball.
What year do you remember?
It's
I
our,
can't
I
I've
wanna
got
s-
that. Yeah.
I want to say
it-
maybe our junior year.
we beat them. We beat
I
them
would've been
here,
on the
and then they
team.
turned around and beat
This
us.
was the year that Betsy Chenault and Kathy Stidham
Yes.
were with us.
Yes.
Yes.
These two girls came up from Oklahoma, came
Yeah,
down from
yeah.
Oklahoma for 1 year, I believe.
Yep.
Mhm.
And they were hotshot high school players, and
And
really
tall.
And yeah,
Betsy.
Betsy was
That's
tall.
right.
Kathy was just a
Right.
hot shot point guard.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was the year we went to Austin and beat
Go
them.
look it up. I forgot.
Yeah.
And Austin also had a young lady who was black, came out of San Antonio, and she was about 6'4",
Basketball.
basketball, and I think you were our tallest player at the time, and I mean, it was. She
5'5".
was phenomenal. She went off to play in the Olympics and then did not become a pro because there wasn't that back then, but went off to play, and she was phenomenal. So I can remember half the game just being
Right.
In awe.
That was this on our team.
no,
on the
she was on
opposite-
UT's
right.
team.
You know
They got
that
to recruit.
that the basketball team played the first game that was ever played in that new
On the drum.
in the Baylor.
Really?
Right. You
That
played
was the
that.
first.
That was the
in
first
the
basketball
new-
game
because it
ever
was new.
played in that.
Wow.
And that the coach that Olga Fallon, I picked this up from their account, was that she, because your team was so small, she didn't start any of her big
I'm sure she did.
Oh, we really
and
appreciate
and
that.
she
We do.
right and but it said unless needed.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know,
Needed.
but that's well, that's interesting.
That's
from
really cool.
Same thing happened. I remember that game. We walked into that huge.
Yes.
And just looking up, and again, we kind of froze. We were like intimidated by the building.
And
the surroundings.
isn't that one of the things about your era was that, unlike today, they're playing more teams that are similar, right? You know, they're recruiting about the same kinds of level of. Would that be fair? Most where back when you were going, you were playing many teams that were scholarship
Exactly.
or that were that had schools that had lower admission standards and could get more people in. I mean, that was always a handicap for your team.
It was a handicap, and yet if they had recruited, none of us would have been playing. So we look
Right.
back
Right.
and go, we're very
Right.
glad we had this experience.
Right.
And I might interject, since you mentioned Olga. Olga was the Libby Johnson of Baylor.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
She was the great promoter of all sports for women in Texas. And Libby was a student of Olga's.
Really? Okay.
Uh-huh. And so Libby's greatest desire was, of course, to defeat
Beat her.
Olga in it.
Ah,
Right.
okay.
Right.
Isn't that
Right. She
fun?
says that. Right.
That's why we had to walk out on broken legs.
Now you
makes
know.
sense now.
Now you know. So I was thinking, we were talking about facilities and obviously scholarship schools and, us playing those with a lot more resources. What were the practices and the other things like? Did we have to compete with men for the gyms, or do you remember? What do you remember
we
about
always
it?
practiced in the little gym. We never got to practice very rarely in the big gym,
Not unless they were on
unless
a game
the guys
and out
had
of
a
town.
game and were out of town.
Okay. Yeah.
They
And
were in
remember
auxiliary.
softball?
In softball, we practiced on the field outside of what used to be High Rise, that's now Thomas, but all our games were played at Breckenridge Park. So I was thinking about that the other night. We didn't even have a field to play on here.
But we didn't complain because
We didn't know any
we were
better.
just happy we
We were
had
happy to be playing.
something.
Well, you were the invisible team because
We were.
nobody ever saw you play.
That's correct.
That was part of the problem.
Correct.
Right.
And same with track. So I think softball and track suffered because you didn't have a presence on the campus, really. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, do we feel bereft of student support? I think we were just having fun. Yeah.
We didn't know any better.
Yeah.
And the people who haunted the gym, they're always there playing, they would come in and watch our games.
I can remember the Baylor
didn't-
game, and I don't remember this as much about UT, but Rookie mentioned the building being intimidated. I can remember being intimidated because there were people in the stands. And you would play at home, and the team would be on the bench, and you might have a few of the guys that played basketball watching. But that was it. And so to walk in and think, wow,
Yeah.
This is different.
it is
Did
different.
that help? Did it affect your play or?
All I remember about that game is being so outplayed.
Yeah, yeah,
Now, are you speaking of Baylor or
I'm speaking
Austin?
of Baylor.
No.
yeah.
I don't remember that about Austin.
Mhm.
And maybe it's because I expected Austin to be
Yeah.
a bigger crowd.
Mhm.
And when y'all played, was Jody Conrad
Mhm.
coach at Austin?
Yeah.
I think we played so many times without a crowd. We just knew how to motivate ourselves. So when there were people there, it was like I totally ignored them.
Right.
Hmm.
I didn't even pay any
Mhm.
attention.
Yeah. What about traveling? Did you, what do you remember about traveling? Did we have the resources we needed? Do people drive? Do we have a bus? Did they pay
We
for your
used to
meals?
drive. We had the cars, though. We would rent the cars, or not rent. We'd get the Trinity cars,
And we would
Drive.
drive.
and we would take turns driving.
Mm-hmm.
And we always ate good. Libby took great care of us. We
Mhm.
just
She did.
loved going to the steakhouses.
Steak and ale, right?
Yep.
That's what I thought I was remembering.
Yeah.
Okay.
And whatever steak, country steak or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we
Wherever
ate
we were.
well.
And yeah, we were well taken care of. We
That's good.
felt
What about the,
four in a
the
room.
the facilities for changing and training and all that hot tub and all that sort of thing? What about
Well, the trainer, Barb.
Yeah.
So
Barb.
So
What's Barb's last name?
Smith? Is it
No.
Smith? No, Barb Jones.
Jones. That was nice. That was really nice when we started getting attention. We can put our foot in the hot tub, and it's helping us. And we did the hot and cold, and get wrapped by them. I don't know who wrapped us before.
Barbara.
When she wasn't
Before
here.
Barbara was.
Was
Maybe.
Sandy
Sandy
Champion.
well before that where they didn't have it? You always had a woman,
I think
Trainer?
Sandy Champion
We
was
had a
the
student
assistant.
trainer.
yeah, a student.
Yes, a student female trainer.
But you had to go into the men's facilities to.
It depended what we were doing. If they were wrapping our ankle, we
Oh,
used
yeah.
to do it in
That's
Libby's
true.
office.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But if we were using the hot tub or
We
anything,
did have
yes,
to go
we had
into
to go into the
men's.
men's facilities.
And did Knock ever work with you?
No.
We said hi to him. We'd always say hi.
Mhm.
He was very
Right.
friendly, but no, he
No.
didn't work with us.
And you had to be we're asking all these questions. You had to be accompanied by.
Oh yes.
Somebody.
Libby
Yes.
Or,
Right.
Yeah.
Or Sandy.
And did they have? I mean, some of the accounts they had to clear the guys out before
yes.
you.
Yes.
Right. And so again, that didn't. That
Didn't happen that often. I don't remember.
Uh-huh.
I think we came
we
from
got
a
our own
time
hot tub.
when
Right.
that was a step up from our high school because our
Right.
high school had no training.
Right.
So if
We
you
were-
got injured in
we
high
were
school,
impressed again.
you were done.
Go to the doctor.
At
go to your
least
own doctor.
here, we had Barbara and Sandy taping our ankles, and we had the facilities if we needed them. So that was a step up.
I was thinking about like weight training. Do
Mm-hmm.
you recall where we did that and how that worked?
I don't remember
doing it.
Because I think I tried to start doing it for track, but I think they had to schedule a time
I'm sure we
because the
would have.
football team was always in there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if y'all remember that.
We didn't do
I
anything like that
never
with
did weight
basketball.
training.
Okay.
Not
Okay.
organized. Okay, girls, go
Mhm.
do this.
No, I think
And
I-
really, back then, we practiced 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, from 2 to 4.
Mhm.
And that was it.
You remember in track, Ricky, did the coach just give us a schedule and then we just pretty much ran our own practice? Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I remember that. Well, every once in a while he'd be there, and it would be those sprint things. I hated those things that kind of make you sick to your stomach. Kind of. So when he wasn't around, I never really sprinted.
but there wasn't any sense of technique or trying to
No.
show you how to improve and that sort of thing. No.
He may have a little
Yeah.
in passing when he was there,
Yeah.
but he had other job. This was just a real part-time.
This was
Right.
he was a reluctant coach, as I recall. So it was
Yeah.
pretty much our
Right.
He
own.
must have been busy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Other
Okay.
jobs.
Just want to make sure I was remembering that right.
Mm-hmm.
How do y'all think sports has affected you since being at Trinity? Has it been a positive influence, and if so, how do you think it has?
Absolutely. I mean, I played co-ed softball and women's softball probably until
Yeah, we played on the
10
team,
years
too.
ago.
Did you ever play on the team?
Oh
with
yeah,
her?
yeah. Sue
you
and
know,
Steve and I were on a co-ed team for many years.
Yeah. And that was great.
Mm-hmm.
I think it certainly gave us a sense of confidence that we could go out and do that. And it's just always been a way of getting to know people and having some fun.
And I felt like through the years, taught aerobic dancing by
Oh,
Jackie
yes,
Sorensen
yes.
with Gail Cook,
Yeah.
and you did as well.
Right.
But then after having children and having to try to get back into shape, and finding after the third child, I'm tired, I don't want to get back into shape. But there was always that knowing we have to be disciplined. I have to be disciplined, and no matter how long it takes, it's just you get in that mindset of, instead of this telling me what I'm going to do, I'm going to tell this body you're going to do this. And I would think about the wind sprints, and I think at basketball, and I would go, well, at least I don't have to do that. All I have to do is jog around the neighborhood. So I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just helped that mental toughness with the athletics.
So it'd be something different if you could project having gone to Trinity without that. You
Can't even imagine.
felt like that would be a big loss
a
to your
huge loss.
total
Yes.
total experience.
It's social, emotional, educational, everything.
Physical.
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 But you know, that was the last thing Ricky mentioned with your help.
Yeah.
So that's a really neat.
It's like a given. The physical is kind of like a given because
Mhm.
it's just like the foundation.
Okay.
Cool. So one of these questions, and I think I know the answer, but I'm gonna go ahead and ask it. Was it a worthwhile experience to participate in sports at Trinity?
Absolutely.
Yes.
So that's a closed-ended question. So
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, that's a great question.
You know, the other nice thing about the athletic program is that it brought people together who might not otherwise have gotten together. You
Wouldn't
were
have
a
hung
Chi
out with
Beta, I
gamers.
was a Gamma. I mean,
We
normally,
didn't hang out together.
I know. Normally, you would have hung out with the group that you were affiliated with, and this sort of broke all those boundary lines. And I met friends of Betsy's who were she met friends of mine who were Gammas, and of course, this one was nothing. So we met her
Everybody thought I was
friends.
a gamma. They were
Yeah.
the jocks.
But it was, it was nice to have that inclusion of everybody. It was really
across the lines.
Do you think I just played athletics in high school, but one of the things that I always carried with me was what you could do together rather than just something by yourself. That there was something about
Yes, the team.
putting together with a group of people and having a goal, and you may not even like them. You know what I mean? Personally, they might not be your buddies, but they became something different to you in that context.
Yes, that's the truth.
I've never found a way to replicate that. You know what I mean? That they can do a lot of other things, and even sports to where you may be playing golf, you play by, it's a
Right.
self or a
Individual
bowling. That's
sport.
different, but that kind of
The
bonding,
the
not
teamwork.
by making you drink alcohol and
right.
and sticking you out in the middle of the
Hey.
night, but that kind of bonding is.
I don't remember us, for me, ever being on a team here where the players didn't get along. I mean, we might not have been best friends, but we had a common goal. We cared about one another. We encouraged one another. I don't remember there ever being any tension among the players.
Does that go back to Libby?
Absolutely.
I keep
Absolutely.
coming back to her. Go ahead.
Absolutely. I mean, the fact that we would,
She was the glue.
she was the glue that held us together.
Even some of the girls, maybe junior year, senior, that they were kind of fringe. We wouldn't have hung with them off the court or outside of games and travel, but on the court, they're our best buds.
Absolutely.
When they get the job done, it's like, rooting each other on.
I want to ask a question. If this is out of the bounds, let me know.
Nothing's out of bounds.
Because it's
Nothing's out of
interesting
bounds.
when I was just reading, John McEnroe's comment about Margaret Court talking about every women's tennis player is a lesbian or something. So we were playing at a time where there were some gay athletes in our locker room that we didn't know because they weren't coming out.
And it wasn't talked about. It wasn't even thought about.
I was
at
going
the
to ask
time.
you, was that even? I don't. Rather than speak for myself and ask you, was that even in anybody's mind that there was?
Not till my junior year, because I was married my senior year. But junior year, there was a young lady who came up to me one time. She was kind of on the fringe of the sports. Came up to me one time and said, "Well, everybody thinks you and Sue are gay." I'm like, really?
Yeah.
I never would have thought it. Not like we didn't hang.
Yeah, yeah.
When you're at sports and you're hanging on each other. Like, but really, it was never. Of course, we all did that. All
Right.
Well, the guys did
all-
that too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But did they ever
Yeah,
say that?
and
No.
nobody said that much
No.
about.
But I was like, no.
But
I
honestly,
didn't know
no, I
that.
don't think it was ever really an issue. I mean, I look back now at particularly, well, in high school and college, that a lot of the friends that I had have since come out as being gay. Doesn't impact me.
Yeah.
But when on the court, the goal was all the same, was to win the game. And, you know,
That's true because when I coached the year I coached, it was one player and the player's girlfriend, and but I was not really aware of that for quite a while, and then when I was like, well, you know, I think I did, there was nothing going on. There was nothing that was out of the ordinary. So it was like,
What difference does it make?
yeah, it is what it is.
But what did it feel like to be taken over for Libby? I mean, what went through your mind?
Well, I'll tell you.
What went through your mind?
Shirley Rushing contacted me after I coached at Judson High School, coached and taught at Judson High School my first 3 years out of college. And I'd already planned to retire because they were changing the program. They were sending us from the main gym back into the little gym. I was like, no. And then she calls and says, Libby's retiring. Will you come and coach all the women's athletics and then teach some classes? And I was like, I was thinking about it, and then I got overwhelmed. And I thought, there's no way I can do that. I cannot replace Libby Johnson. There's just no way. So I turned it down. And then Shirley a little later calls back and said, what if you just coached and you didn't teach? I'm like, okay, I can do that. So then...
She's always trying to get the most out of it,
Yeah.
right?
She's a negotiator.
still.
And then, so when I came, it was, I had to fill some big shoes. But the entire, I guess the lady that had been there maybe before me, I guess Libby wasn't doing volleyball right before I took over.
Right.
And so-
Susan.
Susan, and I guess they'd had some losing seasons and everybody had bailed.
Right.
So
Right.
my year, I had a couple of people. Joy, can't remember Joy's last name. Remember Joy? She was a senior when I got in 80, and then 81, and then the rest were freshmen, and they had all played high school volleyball. So I inherited, I inherited a great team, and I just ran it like Libby ran it. I didn't know anything else, and these girls, they fought for it. And I think we got second in our division that year, which Sol Ross I think got first. But that was just a little blessing from the Lord that He let me do
You
that.
look so young.
And then
and so in
basketball.
shape.
Oh, I'm telling you. And then basketball. When I got to basketball, I realized, you know what? I always loved volleyball. I knew that game. Basketball, I just played basketball. And so we went through some practices and some games, and it was not good. And some of the team came to me and said, we need to work on some stuff here. And I was like devastated. So I turned to my husband and said, honey, can you help me coach the basketball team? So he came and he did. He kind of helped me, geared me towards what to be looking for. And he would sit on the bench and he would help me because he was an alum. And so that's really what got me through basketball, was Hector, because I did not know the coaching aspect of the game. I could get out there and do my job, but and then track was still kind of a left behind sport even then when I got here. So
You were involved in coaching that.
I did. I coached.
Oh, you did?
I did, and I think we had maybe 3 or 4 people on the team. It was another small team.
Right. Because that was one of the sports the track was, they were talk about, that dropping that, but
And it's a good team now, right?
yeah.
What's cool is the Emily Dom ran cross country with my son at O'Connor, and I actually worked at USAA with her parents.
Really?
Her mom worked at USAA, and so I've known Emily for a long time. And she comes to Trinity, excels at cross country, and now she's coaching, and I'm just
That's
beyond
awesome.
excited. And I think that's
Awesome.
why is you have somebody with that.
She's coaching here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's
that's
that
cool.
is why.
men's and women's cross country, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Now, when you coached volleyball that year, was Libby the coach the previous year or Susan?
Susan.
Okay, Susan.
yeah.
Okay. You keep asking about funny things from Libby, and what comes to mind every time is Libby's name for Susan was TD. And I don't know whether any of you know what TD stands for or not.
No.
It stands for
Touchdown.
terminal degree.
Oh.
And the reason
It sounds like her.
Yeah,
Libby
she had a
called her TD was when we employed her as volleyball coach, one of the criteria was she had to have a terminal degree. That's when academics was ruling
starting to-
everything.
Wow.
And I was on the search committee, and I kept telling the administrators, the reason people are getting their terminal degree is so that they don't have to coach.
Right.
But I couldn't convince
And
anyone
she had
of that.
never coached before she came to Trinity.
No,
Maybe.
but she was a very good teacher,
Yeah.
and she had a terminal degree.
Right.
Wow.
But
Right.
Libby's name for her was TD.
Well, I thought that when I read a bit about her, I thought that was really interesting that we had brought many athletes in who hadn't played sports before, but we had never brought
But I
a
could.
coach in
That had
who had never coached before.
That's
Wow.
the reason
And-
she was employed.
But right,
Wow.
and then the volleyball team quit in the middle of the season,
Oh, really?
and that was a big blow to
Wake
the
up, yeah.
to the
Wow.
program, and she just and she admitted that they weren't showing up for practice. They weren't happy playing, and so they had a meeting. They called a meeting, and they just said, no, we're going to quit. And I think that I know both Libby and Pete Murphy were very upset. That's the first time they said that any Trinity team had ever quit in the middle of a season. So
Yeah, never.
But I can recall Libby coming in one morning and saying, well, TD was eating pizza on the bench last night. And, she was not pleased with anything that happened
Wow.
there. And then Susan left
Yelling at
here,
them.
went on to get her MD, and the last I heard was a physician in the emergency room in one of the hospitals
right.
there. Very, very bright.
right,
And,
I
and
gathered
very
that.
good in her chosen field,
Right.
but her field was not volleyball.
They just picked
Right.
the
You know,
wrong
the other
person
thing
for
that-
that job.
Right.
The other thing really
and
nice.
then is this is right, Shirley, that they never replaced Libby as a assistant athletic director.
No,
They never put that position back in again.
no.
So
Well, I was going to say, at the time that we were playing, it was incredible that we had an opportunity to play basketball, volleyball, softball,
Right, right.
track,
Yes. that
and
was
you
awesome.
focused on volleyball for 3 months, and then you can't do that any longer.
No,
You know?
they
I mean, now
overlap.
It's
they
sad.
overlap, and by the time you're 5 or 6, you're keyed into one
Right.
area to go, and that was just incredible.
I was telling these guys at first I was upset because we really didn't. We had tennis where you had to belong to Houston Country Club, and then everybody else went out for volleyball, and that's my worst sport. And so I didn't have high school sports. But if
Okay.
I had been a high school athlete today, I couldn't have afforded to be on a select team
Right.
for any of those sports.
Right.
So I would have probably gotten passed over again. You know, it
Right.
just at first you think it's a better environment, and then you think, wait a minute, maybe it's not.
Right.
So we were really lucky to be able to do that and
Yeah.
play. So there was a rule in intramurals that if you were on a team for that sport, like softball, we couldn't play women's softball intramurals. Now we could play co-ed,
Right.
Yeah.
and
Or you
that
could play basketball.
right,
Right.
right,
Right.
And so so you were able, if you like sports, you were able to do a little of everything. You could be on some varsity sports, do some intramural. It was really a fun time.
It's almost like what you were saying. It's like the difference between general practitioner in the medicine and
Right.
the
Specialist.
And
specialist.
Right.
specialists.
Exactly.
And you were the era of the general practitioners, and they're in the era of the specialists.
Right.
And they're different, and they have different experiences, and you know, there's a lot of positive to what you went through. It's harder,
Absolutely.
but
But it was a lot of
it's
fun.
just different goals.
Right.
Well, the other thing is I didn't start having knee problems till my 40s. They're having them in their teens now because
Oh,
they're
yeah.
specializing in one sport and
Right.
overuse because they're
And
doing it
one
year
position
round.
in that sport.
I think the cross training probably benefited us too.
You're right.
So
Well, isn't there also one that other benefit that it allows the kind of sports, intercollegiate sports that the women had, allowed women who were skillful but not in it, you know, just go to the top and win all the time, and to give them that experience and to improve them, to make them better players, but you know, not.
Right.
Not
And
winning.
and actually, you reminded me. Sophomore year, we had a girl, Beth, come out for the volleyball team. She'd played for Jefferson, which had a very good high school volleyball team, and she was in training for the Olympics that
Right.
year. So I remember she was one of these so intense, and she was spiking. And I remember setting for her in one game, and we were going back and forth. And I set her a couple times, and she's hitting it in the net, hitting the net. And I remember after that going, Eve, it just encouraged me and us. It's like she's not that much better than we are. So
Yeah.
it was like an encouragement. She really upped our game for sure. But
And did she only stay there the 1 year?
and
Yeah.
she didn't make the trials. I think she was a
She,
little short.
yeah, she
Do you
didn't
remember
make the she didn't
Yeah.
make the finals of the Olympics.
Right.
You know, she got into the
Trials.
the
The
tryouts, but she didn't make it. Yeah. Okay.
You know, I'm even trying to remember, and I don't know if you guys do. So we had Stidham and Chenault for that 1 year, and do you remember where they went and why they didn't last more than a year?
I don't remember where they went.
I don't either. Yeah, so it kind of made me wonder if you have a like a 5-star athlete or whatever they call them today, would they have liked playing at Trinity? It's almost more of a humbling experience than it is a championship.
Do you remember Cynthia from freshman year? She played volleyball.
Yeah, Cynthia Rodriguez.
Cynthia Hicks.
Oh,
Cynthia
Cynthia
Hickson.
Hicks.
Cynthia Hicks. She was one of these. She looked like a Barbie doll. She was absolutely gorgeous with not a stitch of makeup on. I mean, just her coloring, and she was a good volleyball player. And I remember by the end of the year, she had dated every male on campus, and she went to UT because it wasn't big enough here. And she did end up marrying the quarterback of the football team.
Wow.
Well, that's a success.
Well, you know,
Huh?
That's a success story.
another example is Sue Davis, right? You remember she played. She ran track. She was an
yes.
excellent track athlete,
Yes.
and I think she played
played
basketball
She did.
because she came out of Galveston with a 3-on-3.
Mm-hmm.
But I think she ran with us that 1 year. It was our sophomore year, and then she goes to UT and she has a really good track and field career.
Yeah, that's right. I do remember that. She
So we
was
did
very
have
good.
some flashes in the pan, so to speak.
Yeah.
Or no, that may not be the right term. But anyway, we had some very high quality athletes that, and then we had high quality athletes who stayed, like these guys.
And
Well, this one.
But anyway, so yeah. And so time check. We're gone. It's 3:15.
Well, that's great.
We need to talk to them a bit about what they have done since
Since.
they left.
Yeah.
So kind of, in the next 30 seconds or so, can you
Right.
wrap up
Yeah.
44 years?
40 years.
Yeah.
Go ahead, you go first.
Let's see. Graduated, coached and taught for 3 years in public school, 1 year at Trinity, and that whole year I was at Trinity coaching for
You got 15 minutes.
Livy. I was pregnant with my first child. So, end of the year, track season arrives. I actually sent Hector on the bus to take it because I thought I might be delivering any day. So then I didn't come back. They had asked me to stay. Didn't come back to Trinity. Had 3 children, homeschooled all 3 of them through high school, and then went to work, volunteer work at church, and then got hired at my church for a few years. And then
Aerobic dance.
aerobic dancing throughout that whole time. And then my oldest daughter got married, had a baby, and when Evan was 6 months old, I became full-time Nana. So I did that for 5.5 years, 5.5 years till he went to school, and have just been kind of volunteering at church, doing a lot of things like that. Not playing a lot of sports, just trying to keep in shape on my own, working out and keeping in shape and through the years, college roommate here for a year, and through the years we would do things, but we really weren't close until recently. Really recently, when Hector got sick. My husband Hector got sick with cancer, which was diagnosed right around December, end of December, last December. And then it was like, this woman was everywhere. You need food, you need this. Even though I said no, she's still there.
Still
She's
brought you
bringing
food.
food. She's visiting in the hospital. And so it was nonstop over this last 9-10 months.
Been awesome.
And so that's been really
Well,
fun.
and the
too.
sacrifice of her going to Hawaii with you.
I
Yeah.
know.
I
Well,
that
she'll
just-
have to tell you
that
that
just-
story.
Say what? Go ahead.
Well, I was on an airplane coming back from visiting my sister, and I got a text that said, I've been invited to Hawaii and I've been asked to bring a friend.
Me,
Would
I
you
was
be
the
my
one.
friend? And it came from her. And Hector and Rookie were in our wedding, and I was in her wedding. I wasn't married at the time. And so when Hector got sick, my husband said to me, you need to do whatever you can for her. And I said, okay, not a problem. So I came home and I said, babe, I don't know how to tell you this. I have to sacrifice. I have to go to Hawaii with Rookie. And so we went at the end of October. It was awesome. It was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So what have I done? I graduated from Trinity. I taught for 1 year. It was the absolute worst experience in my life. I came back to Trinity and got a master's in counseling and guidance and went to work for a communications company called Hart Hanks and worked in human resources for about 10 years.
And you were my client for a while.
Yes, I
Remember
was.
that?
Yep. Had my first child in 1985 and left my job to be a full-time mother. Did that till he has a younger sister, till she was in middle school, and I went back to work part-time for Sally Foster and did that for about, it was supposed to be a 3-month job commitment. It lasted about 6 years. And then in 2010, my husband and I started attending a church in the Bulverde area, and I got asked to lead mission teams to Uganda. And so I've been doing that every year since then, sometimes more than one
Wow.
trip.
Yeah.
So doing all the planning and organizing and
She was volunteering to hand out bulletins. Seriously.
I did,
Yeah.
seriously, I
And they
met,
said,
big
will
job.
you overtake the mission trips with Uganda? Oh.
yeah, I went to meet with them to say I'd like to get more involved, and I thought she's going to
Yeesh.
say, hand out the bulletins on Sunday. How'd you like to take over the Uganda mission?
Think big.
And that takes a lot of time to get organized and
Oh,
get
sure.
everybody ready. And then I volunteer out at a restaurant that the church owns. So I do that.
That
And I have 2 grandchildren, so I do that.